Hello, Lilborn PCC. I'm going to make a couple of short videos here about the key learning points that we've experienced here at St Margaret's in using our card reader. This first video, I'm going to talk about some of the decision-making points which I think we've learned from having now had it for a few months, which might help you as you kick this issue around at your PCC. The second video, which I'll do, is much more about some of the more practical lessons that we've found from using the card reader week by week. So let's just think about some of those learnings for the decision-making process that you're going through at the moment. I was interested to read in a piece that came from Goodbox just recently. Goodbox is the company that supplies the card reader. They were quoting from a Charitable Aid Foundation report that during January 2021, just 7% of donors used cash. Now, I don't know how representative January 2021 is for other times of giving, but I do think it makes a really, really important point, and I know that many of you are kind of already on board with this, is that cash is much less important now in so many ways. I certainly haven't used cash, honestly haven't used cash apart from minor things like car parking charges and that sort of thing for a couple of years now. And I think that's true for many, many people. Having said that, this is a major change process. Just by having a card reader isn't magically going to produce lots of extra income necessarily. I think it takes time for people to get to know that you've got a card reader. The association with church and the bag or the plate going round and you put your loose change into it, I think is really hard to break that down. And you just have to be patient and communicate and communicate and communicate. And of course, eventually people get used to it. I mean, it was interesting. We had the children's event at St Margaret's on the 5th of February. And a couple of the parents who were at that event, and bear in mind this was a free event, they said to us they'd like to make a donation, but they didn't have any cash. And I said, no problem, we've got a card reader. And so, we generated £15, I think, from these two people. And I think that's also another point that we found is that whereas typically the church collection will be loose change, when you give by card, we set a default minimum amount of £5, and you can increase or decrease that in increments of £1. That we don't often get somebody giving less than £5, and quite often it will be £10, and sometimes it's more than that. So I think the trend towards card payments and cash playing a much smaller part is certainly part of the way life is right now. In terms of where do I think it's strongest, I think it's absolutely fantastic for fundraising events. At the Scarecrow weekend, it was knockout. It really was. I think we would not have generated as much money from that event had we not had the card reader. Similarly, it was very helpful at the musical evening that we had in October, I think it was last year, where people were invited to make donations. And so those sorts of events, it's really helpful. I think week by week for the regular services, it rather depends on how big your congregation is, how many of the people in the congregation are contributing by direct debit, etc. So even in St Margaret's, which of course is a much larger church than Lilborn, we don't generate, say, maybe more than £15–20 a week, something like that, sometimes a bit more, but that might be 1, 2, 3 people that are contributing by card. And there will be other weeks when it's maybe just one person. So I think for the week by week, you've got to be patient with it. But in the round, over the course of, say, 12 months, where you've got a variety of different things that you are wanting to raise money for, then the card reader certainly is a win. The other thing to say is that and I don't know whether you've picked this up, the card reader doesn't do gift aid. You can gift aid the payments using the card reader, but you've got to use a manual process. You've either got to get someone to fill out an envelope, or you come up with some other form of declaration that says that the giver is happy to have their payments, you reclaim the tax on that. You can, of course, use the, whatever the term now for the HMRC is, to use the plate contribution piece, and we will certainly use that to reclaim the tax as if the card reader payment had been placed in cash in the plate. But it is a weakness of the system. Having said that, I think if you are likely to raise more money, which I think you will using the card reader, then overall, I'd say, you know, the loss of 25% on tax is probably compensated for by the increased giving that you're receiving. So there's some pointers there which I think are useful, and I hope you find those helpful as you make your own decision. I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to make a second video which is more about the practicalities.